Shabbat Shalom. Can everybody see me and hear me clearly? Somebody put in the chat, let me know if everything is clear. Shabbat Shalom. Yoshua. All right. Torah. Princess Simcha. Torah. All right. Let's get this party started. I'm going to rise and give praises to our God to set this off. Giving all honor and praise to the Most High God, who sitteth in the seat of judgment, whose throne is inestimable, the Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, the high and lofty one, who inhabiteth eternity, who has no counselor and none to consort with him. He who has reigned from the beginning, before any creature was formed, or any green shoot shot forth, before the foundations of the earth were laid, before the legions of angels first assembled. Yea, he who possessed wisdom ere the waters were parted asunder, or the winds of the firmament ever blew. He alone, the dreaded one, did reign, still reigns, and shall reign over all things forever. From everlasting to everlasting, El Shaddai, the Almighty God, the creator of all life, who made man in his own image, to whom he gave a heart of flesh, and has imparted him with the 5 operations of Elohim: eyes to see, ears to hear, smell, and taste, that he might enjoy the pleasures of eating and drinking, whereby he may obtain strength and healing from the foods and medicines of the earth that he made for him. And feeling also, both to the touch and in the inward parts, to know what was in his heart, whether he would serve Ha Elohim, his maker, or no. And besides these, he endowed him with good sense and reason, and speech to interpret the things that are seen and heard, that he might comprehend and articulate his thoughts, becoming fully aware, possessing the power to make sound decisions. And in his abounding loving kindness, he granted him understanding, yea, and knowledge also, that he might have withal to pursue the things that are pleasing to the Lord, and depart from evil. He to whom all honor, worship, and praise is due, the omnipotent God, God of the Hebrews, who made the sea and the dry land, the God of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the God of Israel, the true and living God, the author of love, time, life, and sound, who spake and it was created, for all things are done at the words of his mouth, who breathed life, the one spirit, into our first father Adam, from whom we all are come to the world, which he made for the serving, nurturing, and nourishment of man, his most precious creation, to whom he gave his most righteous law, for righteousness belonging to him alone, who is just in all things, who keep his covenant and mercy with them that love him, and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations, even to the seed of his beloved friend Abraham, even to us, the children of Israel, Ben Isaac and Maccabim, sons of the ancient Maccabees. For he is our God, the ancient of days, for before the day was, is he. The God of the spirits of all flesh, El Qanah, the jealous God, El Rahum, the merciful God, El Rapha, the God of healing, the one and only true healer, Hagadol, the great, Hagibor, the mighty, Wehanorah, and the terrible. Elohim Zebaoth, the Lord of hosts is his name. He is the King of glory. Blessed be the glorious name of his kingdom forever and ever. For he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. Giving due respect to the chief men, princes, dignitaries, officers, mothers in Israel, brothers and sisters, I stand before you this day, Prince Zachariah, a title bestowed upon me by the order of Chiefs Eleazar ben Lewi, ben Dodo, aka Matitya, father of the house of the Maccabees, my teacher and leader, in whose honor I speak and continue the legacy of his name, works, and teachings, in the name of our God, and the holy law given us at the mouth of his prophet Moshe, reinstituted by and in accordance with the protocol set forth by Nasi Yaakov, head knock of all the Hebrews, teacher, leader, and founder of Ben Isaacim, the first Hebrew Israelite congregation in the United States of America, whither we have been exiled because of our sins and the sins of our fathers, whom our God commissioned to bring his people together, to the intent that he might open our eyes and give us ears to hear and a heart to perceive, as it is at this day, that we may keep his commandments, return to him, and repair the breach. I bid you in the ancient tongue of our fathers, Shabbat Shalom Lechem.
Shabbat Shalom.
Please remain standing as we recite the Constitution of Israel in Hebrew from Exodus chapter 20. Please repeat after me. Vayidaber Elohim et kal hadebarim ha'ele lemor Anoki El Shaddai Eloheka Asher hotzetika ve'eretz Mitzrayim mibeit abadim lo yihye leka Elohim acherim al panai lo ta'aseh leka fesel ve'kal timuna Asher bashamayim mima'al Wa'asher ba'aretz mitachat Wa'asher b'mayim mitachat la'aretz Lo tishtachaweh lahem Ve'lo ta'abdem Ki anoki El Shaddai Eloheka El Kwana Pokei Raon Abot al Banim Al Shileshim Ve'al Ribeim Lesonai Ve'oseh Chesed La'alafim leohabai Ul Shomrei Mitzotai Lo tisa et Shem El Shaddai Eloheka Lashau Ki lo yinakwe El Shaddai Et asher yisa Et shemo lashau Zakor et Yom HaShabbat Lekwad Sho Sheshet Yamim Ta'abod Ve'asita kal melakteka Ve'yom Hashbi'i Shabbat la El Shaddai Eloheka Lo ta'aseh kal melaka Ata Ubinka Ubiteka Abdeka Wa'amatka Upemteka Ve'girka asher bishareka Ki sheshet yamim Asa El Shaddai Et hashamayim Ve'et haaretz Et hayam Ve'et kal asher bam Vayanak bayom hashbi'i Al ken berak El Shaddai Et Yom HaShabbat Vayikwad shehu Kabed et abika Ve'et imeka Lema'an yarikun yameka Al ha'adama Asher El Shaddai Eloheka Notein lak Lo tirzach Lo tin'af Lo tignob Lo ta'aneh Ve're'aka ed shakwer Lo takmod Beit re'eka Lo takmod Eshet re'eka Ve'abdo Wa'amato Ve'shoro Wa'chamoro Ve'kol asher l're'eka Shavu, you may be seated. And all the people perceived the thunderings and the lightnings and the voice of the horn and the mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they removed and stood afar off. And they said unto Moses, Speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, Fear not, for God is come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that ye transgress not. And the people stood afar off, but Moses drew near unto the thick darkness where God was. And the Lord said unto Moses, Thus thou shalt say unto the children of Israel, Ye have seen that I talked with you from heaven. You shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall you make unto you gods of gold. An altar of earth thou shalt make unto me, and shalt sacrifice thereon thy burnt offerings, and thy peace offerings, thy sheep and thine oxen. In all places where I record my name, I will come unto thee, and I will bless thee. And if thou wilt make me an altar of stone, thou shalt not build it of hewn stone. For if thou lift up thy tool upon it, thou hast polluted it. Neither shalt thou go up by steps unto mine altar, that thy nakedness be not discovered thereon. Baruch Shemo. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We're going to jump right into it. A lot of things to cover today, but you know how I go. Whatever we don't get to, we get to next week. As you see, the title of this lesson is Obedience, the Proof of belief and love for God. And we just see where God told us right now, Exodus 20, he told the children of Israel at the foot of Mount Sinai, Moses told them, fear not, God has come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your faces, that you transgress not. The proof of whether we believe God is if we're going to keep his commandments, obedience. And that's also how he determines who loves him. We read that also in this same chapter. To them that love me and keep my commandments. So you're not going to find that in the dictionary when you look up the word love. You're not going to find obedience there. You're not going to find to obey. But God is the creator of all concepts. He is the conceiver of all concepts, of all things, good, evil, love, hate, jealousy, envy, admiration. All of these things come from God. Compassion, mercy. And he teaches us what they mean. We can't do things our way and call it what it is. I mean, you could call it what you want, but that doesn't make it true, right? You can call good evil and evil good, but that doesn't make it so, right? So the point is that in order to be accepted of God, we must do things according to the prescribed order and in alignment with the concepts, the definitions of the concepts that he created. So in other words, I could tell you I love you all day, and I could show you my way and say, this is how I show love. And then when you tell me you don't feel loved by me, or when you say that's not love, I tell you, well, that's the way I show love, and expect you to accept it. And that's not what love is, because God teaches us what love is, and he teaches us how to show love and what it means to him. And if you ask every single one of us, I'm pretty sure none of us would say no when the question is asked, do we love God? But if we're honest with ourselves, we have to say no, because we're not loving him the way that he said for us to love him, which is to obey him. If we ask any of us if we believe God, we would say yes. But if we are honest with ourselves, we must say no, because to believe God is to keep all his commandments. To believe God is to do all the things that please him, that are outside of the commandments. In other words, there are certain ways that God commands us, or that God shows us and leads us by example of how to walk, in showing compassion and mercy, to be long-suffering, right? To be patient. And he shows us this towards us, and in turn walks in that walk of example and how he treats us is for us to pick up on that and treat each other that way. And it doesn't need a thou shalt and thou shalt not, because this is another level. This is walking in the ways of God. And if we keep the thou shalts and thou shalt nots, every individual demanding of themselves to keep those precepts, then we will walk in God's ways. We will learn God's ways through the keeping of the commandments. You will learn to have compassion upon your neighbor. You will learn to have mercy and a heart for the poor, the stranger, the fatherless, the widow. We will learn to stop putting limitations on, well, that ain't the stranger he was talking about. That ain't the poor God was talking about. Only the fatherless of our people, right? We will learn to stop putting those limitations where God did not put those limitations. We must stick to what the book says. And we can't take one verse and blow things up out of context to disregard another verse. They all work harmoniously together. No verse can X out another verse. That's our misunderstanding of what the book is teaching us. So we need to stick to what it says. And if it says this in this verse, and it sounds like it says something opposite in another verse, they are not opposites. They are for both to do both. To do both verses exactly the way they are written. To follow the principles of both verses. And they both adhere to the same moral code. We cannot add or take away. I cannot make them fit my perception. I have to humble myself to these words. And what that means is I have to keep them exactly to the way they are written without adding to or taking away or saying, well, if it says this here, then it must mean this over here. No, it don't must mean. It means what it says, and it says what it means. And if it says this right here and this right here, then they're both true. And there's something that are called, that I refer to as stone truths. Stone truths are the truths that God engraved in stone when he engraved the commandments with his finger upon the stones that he cut out with his finger upon Mount Sinai. And those stone truths hold the key to life, the keys to life itself. And they are the foundation of all truths, of all things living in existence. And they all work together. We cannot use our own perception of things and bring our negationistic teachings, which we're going to go over all of this. We're going to sum up all of this with what I just spoke about today at the end of this lesson. But first, we're going to go into the book of Exodus. Let's start there. And chapter 16. Okay. And we're going to learn how God tests us to see if we believe him and if we love him. He's going to test us through commandments to test our faithfulness, to test our thankfulness, to test our love. I can't say I love you and I don't show thanks to you for the good that you have done for me. I can't only love you because you have done me good. See, our concept of love is selfish. And God teaches us the opposite. He teaches us to love each other just because we are one. You're supposed to love your neighbor like you love yourself because you share the same breath, which is the nishmat, which is the breath of God. So we are all a product. Our lives are all connected through the product of his spirit, of his breath that he breathed into us. And that should be enough that we could love each other. Then we say we love God and we turn around and hate each other. And it don't make sense because it's the same breath that came from God, and in the same breath, he commanded us to love each other. We have all these excuses and all these justifications, but no man wants to humble himself to the words of the law. All these limitations, all these perceptions. Well, this is what it must mean, and you got to do it this way, and that's not what the book said. Just follow the words for what they mean. They mean what they say, and they say what they mean. That's why it's so important that we read the law in Hebrew. It gives us a better understanding of God's heart, of God's mind. And everybody want to say what God meant. Ain't nobody breaking it down to see what it says in Hebrew. Now, for books like the Apocrypha, we don't have the Hebrew. So we use the concepts of the words that we learn in English, because it was still the King James Version that we should be reading of the Apocrypha. We use the same concepts of the words that we broke down from the Hebrew in the King James. That same word used in the Apocrypha, you use that same methodology for explaining what it means, because it's the same translator. We're able to look it up in English in the Old Testament. We're not able to look it up in English. In Hebrew, in the Apocrypha. So let's stick to what it says in English. And the most we could do is break it down according to those meanings and stick to it. But the concepts And the way that the book teaches us what words mean, we carry that over into the Apocrypha when we read and break down what it means in the Apocrypha, because it's the same men who wrote this book, the same servants of God who had one mind, one heart that was taught to them from keeping the laws of God. One way of life, one way of living, to what they learned from keeping the law. That's why you could read the words of two men that lived thousands of years apart and they sound the same. They're speaking the same way. What's wrong with us? We talk today like we from two different walks of life, like we reading two separate books of the law. We got two separate concepts of what love means. We got two separate concepts of what it means to have mercy and show compassion to your fellow man. I didn't read that in here, man. I never read that where we're supposed to withhold from this person, but only show to this person. I never read that in the law. Show it to me and break it down for me in Hebrew, please. I need to understand where the difference lies. Because I read one law and I read how our fathers treated people one way. God told us to follow Abraham. We see how he treated who he lived amongst, and they were not Hebrews. The only Hebrews there was his 318 servants and their households. That's it. Who they lived amongst was the children of Heth, the Canaanites. And he said, you a prince among us. He didn't say, nah, man, I ain't giving you nothing. You ain't my people. Nah, you don't deserve mercy. I don't know what book we're reading sometimes, man. I get confused if we're reading the same book, because Isaiah sounds just like Moses. Daniel sounds just like Joshua. I mean, these men followed one standard, one code, moral code that was taught to us from the law, because they didn't change it. They didn't bring their perceptions along with them. They didn't bring justifications. They didn't bring their own selfish views to breaking down the law. They humbled themselves to the words and let the words mold their attitude, mold their beliefs. Let the words mold their feelings. Not the other way around. Not let their feelings mold the words into what they wanted to say. My teacher taught me to stick to what it says, because it says what it means and it means what it says. He said, do your research. Look up the definitions of these words and do what it says. Don't add your own opinions. And that's what we're going to do. Exodus chapter 16, from the top.
And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after their departing out of the land of Egypt.
Okay, so they came from Elim, where there were 70 palm trees and 12 wells, if y'all remember, that are still there today, by the way. Into the wilderness of Sin, and I know you might have read in Numbers where we have a wilderness of Zin. These are two different places. If you look at ancient maps, one place we encountered early as we departed from Egypt, right? And the other we encountered later within that 40-year span, which is between Elim and Sinai on the 15th day of the second month after they're departing out of the land of Egypt, right? So it took them a month to reach this place, because remember, we left on the night of the 15th. Remember, evening comes first. Let's keep this in mind, because we're going to go over this today. When a day begins, when a day ends. What is a day? It's sad that we have to go over these things, to explain what is a day. you know, when the day begins and when the day ends, when it's all throughout the book in plain English, and it means the same thing in Hebrew. But we're going to go over it, and we're going to break it down in Hebrew to find out what it means when a day begins, when a day ends, every day. Some days didn't begin at even, and some days began it in the morning. No. God made one standard, one law. Listen, man. Just stop adding your own interpretation to things, man. That's all we got to do, man. Humble ourselves to these words and keep them the way that they are written. Because you just proven that you don't believe God when you don't follow it to the letter. We prove, our obedience proves whether we believe God and whether we love God. That's why it's the title of this video. And we're going to see in this chapter is a perfect example. Tamshi, verse 2.
And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said unto them.
They murmured. What is murmuring? Complaining in hushed voices. Y'all know we all did it. Yep, we did it to our parents. And walk off when your parents correct you when you're a child. Sad, but some of us still do it as adults, you know. But murmuring is complaining in hushed voices, which God hates, by the way. He hates complaining, period. If you read Numbers chapter 11, he killed them for complaining. You know why? Because complaining is the first sign that we are not the first sign, but it is the major sign that we're not thankful. You can't love God and be unthankful. You can't complain about anything and say that you love God. They don't go together. They complained, and that's how God said they don't believe me, and he killed them. Because they were unthankful to him that prepared life for them. So it's saying Apocrypha. And we have to take heed to these words, man, because they're messages for us. I'm going to say it over and over again. These words are for me. These words are for you. Who's ever listening, they're for you. They're not for us to point the finger at other people. They're for us to examine ourselves for self-reflection purposes. Because that's the only way you're going to get better. That's the only way we're ever going to overcome sin. That's the only way we're ever going to humble ourselves. That's the only way we're ever going to learn to be honest with ourselves and say, I am proud. God hates pride. Pride is the beginning of sin. And if pride is the beginning of sin, that's in the book. But what I'm about to say is not in the book. But if pride is the beginning of sin, then humility must be the beginning of righteousness. And if you look, all these righteous men, that's a key trait that they shared in common. They were all humble. And you can't just be humble with God and not humble with man. It don't go that way. If you're humble with God, you're humble with man. It's just the way it is. A humble individual is a humble individual. It doesn't matter who is with. It's just that's what humility is. Humility is not choosy. Humility is not limited. That's why I said, you know, that fools take meekness for weakness, because we think that if I show myself humble to you, I'm making myself weak. I'm taking my shoes off for you to lay down spikes for me. No, you're not. If you lay down spikes for me, then I know who you are and I know how to navigate. Thank you for showing me. So I'm going to take my shoes off on purpose. I'm going to walk humble before God and man, because what I got to fear? I'm serving God. He's my protection. He's my shield. I ain't got to put up a justification for why I hate you and why I'm going to stay away from you. Listen, man, we selling ourselves short, man. We're depriving ourselves of being able to receive wisdom, because wisdom is not attracted to pride. She's attracted to humility. Okay, so they murmured, they complained. What they say? Verse 3.
And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to God we have died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger.
So he's telling Moses, this to show you that they don't believe God. He said, would to God. This is Old English. And I'm not going to say it's only Old English. Well, yes, Old English, because it doesn't say would to God. It says would or what if? Would it be, or would it be given that, that's how it says in Hebrew, mi yitain, who would have given, right, that we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt. And they're saying, I wish, in modern translation, I wish that we would have died in Egypt when we sat by the flesh pot. Man, that's a very presumptuous thing to say after God just saved this entire nation out of slavery, out of bondage, and performed miracles for us. Because while we heard it last week, while the Egyptians were suffering, God was delivering us. While they starved, we had food. While they were in darkness, we had light. While they were sick, we were healthy. We were healed. And we're so ungrateful that the first thing, as soon as the first sign of a little struggle, the first sign of a little test, a little trial, a test of your faithfulness, we complain. And we say things out of our mouth that's borderline blasphemy. Not borderline, it is blasphemy. I wish that we died when we sat by the flesh pots. And we read this and then we shake our heads at these people. Oh man, they crazy. They said this, man. They are we. It's not they, it's we. We are them, they are us. It's the same. We're the same people. We're the same way. We're worse than them today. If you think you're better than them, then you better check yourself, because we are not better than them. They say they wish they died by the hand. We said, we wish we died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, when we did eat bread to the full. You see what they remember? They didn't remember what they were crying about when they cried to God and he heard their bitter cry. They didn't remember that part. They remembered the part where they were eating good. Just like us today over here in America. Yeah, I'm eating. Yeah, you eating. But you happy over here? You rather be here? We can't forget that we're in exile, man. This is not our land. That's why we want to jump into everything that the nations do, because we feel like we're at home. We haven't learned to separate ourselves from who we used to be or where we grew up. Because I don't care if you was born knowing God and in this way of life or not. We all grew up as Americans, because that's what we were taught in school. Now, some of us had a more harsher teaching from our parents to let us know you are not an American, but we still follow their ways. We still act just like them. Your environment has a lot to do with who you are. And this is when we need the law and the commandments to unbrainwash us, to brainwash us according to God's laws. That's a good one, because that's what it is, a brainwash, to cleanse your thoughts, to cleanse your ways, to cleanse your heart. And that's what the law should be, to remind us of who we are and where we came from. So instead of reading this and shaking our heads at these people, we say, man, that's what I did to God. Because we are them and they are us. For you have brought us forth to this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger, talking to Moses. They don't believe God. They go to Moses and say this, and Aaron, which shows that they don't believe God. And this is another thing that we got to remind ourselves, because we get mad at the teachers. We get mad at the teachings. We get mad at the rebuker. We get mad at the rebuke. But we forget that it all comes from the breath, the mouth, the word of God. Now, if a teacher's up there speaking his own words and you don't like what he's saying, then hey, that's your opinion. You ain't got to like his own words, his own opinions. But when the teacher's up there speaking the word of God and he's quoting the book, or he's paraphrasing what the book said, or he's speaking according to the same moral code that is broken down by the law, or he's speaking according to the same principles of wisdom that come from this book, it behooves you to humble yourself to those words and accept them and love them, regardless if you don't like the teacher or not. Don't look at a certain teacher that's teaching the law and breaking down the way that it's written and then say, I don't like him, and then walk off, or the rebuker. And when you hear the law, you turn around and walk off, because I read in this book where he said, he that turneth his ear from hearing the law, even his prayer shall be an abomination. And then we wonder why when we pray, God don't come so quick. We wonder why he leaves us in trouble. That's because, like it said in the Apocrypha, when you had liberty, we despised his word. See, maybe we think we're so special that we deserve for God himself to come down and talk to us. And we, in our minds, we'd be like, then I will listen. No, you wouldn't. You don't listen now. What make you think you're going to listen to God himself come down? Oh, because you're going to be afraid? No, you're not. You're just like our fathers that we're reading about right now. All that the Lord has said we will keep and do. And as soon as things go good in your favor, you forget God. That's how we are. We're not humble. We are proud. We're not obedient. We are rebellious. We are not thankful. We are treacherous. And until you start to check yourself and notice these things and be honest with yourself and admit these things to ourselves, we ain't returning. We're not returning to God, man. We're not returning. We're doing our own thing and we calling it returning. We're faking ourselves out. We're depriving ourselves of the fruits of wisdom. And we just read last week that he put the Egyptians in forgetfulness. He put us in remembrance wherein we have sinned, but he made them forget the evil that they had done so that they continue. He made them, he made them forget so that they continue and do it again. We read where he did that to the Canaanites. We read where he did that to the Egyptians. If you were paying attention to when we were reading the Wisdom of Solomon last week, he makes the proud forget what you have done. Only a righteous man is going to maintain that guilty conscience and say, I have sinned. We could count King David's sins on one hand and have fingers left over. But he said over and over in the Psalms, my sins are more than the hairs of my head. And he had a beard. Contrary to popular belief, misbelief, he had a beard, which means he had a lot of hairs on his head. And he said his sins is more than the hairs of his head. You know why he said that? Even though he knew to count his own sins on one hand with fingers left over, because so that he never forget where he came from, so that he never forget that he had sinned. Ezra counted himself as a sinner amongst the sinners. He said, we. And I don't think we need the book to tell us that the prophet Ezra, the priest, the prophet, the scribe Ezra never sinned, seeing that he was taken up into the heavens. I don't think we need the book to say, and Ezra never sinned, to be able to make that statement. You ain't going to get taken up into the heavens and you've sinned. Only 3 was taken up into the heavens. Enoch, Elijah, Ezra, in that order. And God said there will never be another after. And Ezra counted himself amongst the sinners. He said, we. He know he never sinned. But do you see the humble, the humility, the meekness that caused him to speak that way? It was no patting on the back. It was no big eyes and little U's. It was no pointing fingers. So who are we following? That's what I want to know. Who are we following? The 3 E's, if we speak in English, because Enoch starts with an Aleph. And Ezra is also I believe is a is also an olive. Elijah is with an olive. Yeah. Actually, I think Enoch is with a a chet, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah. Right. Okay. So okay, let's get back to it. Tom She.
Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no.
Mm-hmm. So he said, I'm going to cause it to rain bread from heaven for you. Because they complained about the food, because they were starving. I remember how much we had to eat in Egypt. Because remember, because they complained about food, God said, all right, I'm going to feed you. The Apocrypha said, we read it last week, he fed them with angels' food. The bread of angels. Angels don't eat, but that's what King Solomon called it, because it came from the heavens. I'm trying to change the way I speak. It came from the heavens. That's what the book says. Shamayim is plural. He said the heavens will hear, right? It tells you what's up in the heavens. The word Mayim is in the word Shamayim. The word water is in the word heavens. It tells you what's up there. There's no space. You think the stars and the planets? No, it's no planets. He said he made the sun, the moon, and the stars and placed them inside the firmament, right? Where he placed in between the waters. The word for heavens has waters in it. It also has Shema in it, which is here. That's why he said the heavens is going to bear witness. They're going to hear. They listening to everything. Man, the language is so deep, man. If we just take it for what it is without adding our own interpretation, we have a greater understanding of where we at and who we are and the power that comes with it and the God we serve. But I don't know, man. I don't know what it is, man. We just we've been taught to not have confidence. We've been taught to not believe. We've been taught to not trust the truth. We can get into more of that in a second. Let's look at the mentality of our fathers, how it's similar to ours. You know, a people that were slaves, you would think would be humble, and they came out proud, complaining, rising up against the deliverer who God sent them, blaspheming against God. No thankfulness, just presumptuous speeches. Presumptuous actions, no humility. And our fathers were slaves. And look exactly the mentality that they had as slaves. And we think we better than them. We exiled and we walk around proud, pointing fingers, talking about how everybody else is cut off. We cut off. We don't have our own land no more. Look, newsflash, Israel, we are all cut off. He said that you'll be estranged from your people. We are all estranged from each other. We're not all in the same city, in the same place. You think one congregation is the only true people of God? He knows us all by name. We can't be so big-headed that we think, oh, you know, we're from the house of Chief Eleazar, so we're the only ones that's God people. No, it don't go like that, bro. Everybody else is cut off. It don't go like that, man. We are all cut off. We all in the same boat. We are all Israel. We all wear the same size shoe. And we are found few amongst the nations, whither he has scattered us among all the nations of the earth. We should be grateful and thanking God that he led us to come from a house, because whether you were sent there or you was born in it, God sent you to come out of that house where he taught his servant to teach us the law, the way that it was written, and wisdom being his guide, and now ours, if we adhere to his teachings. Do you hear that? That's a key. If we adhere to his teachings, the teachings of our teacher, Chief Eleazar. If, because right about now, we're not doing such a great job. If we're honest with ourselves. Because he was up here. His status in keeping the law, let me back up so you can see how high his status with the law was up here. And we are down here. I'm touching the floor. We're down there. So I don't know what we doing. We caught up on the wrong things, man. Every man is not demanding of himself enough. We are not demanding enough of ourselves concerning these laws. Where is the covenant made by sacrifice? Because we want to be saints. We say it. See, our actions don't match up with the words that's coming out of our mouth. We talk a good one. We the people in the book of Ezekiel. Man, it's like a pleasant song. Every Shabbat is a pleasant song playing. And then during the week, the song is over. And every man back to his tents, O Israel. Every man doing his own thing. Wake up, Jacob. And start looking in the mirror. We don't even see our own blemish. We can't see our own blemishes. We're blinded because God put us in forgetfulness of our sins because we are proud. If we humble ourselves, he'll put us in remembrance where we have sinned, and we will maintain that guilty conscience, and we will demand more of ourselves to step it up. That's right. That's right, Stokes, to step it up. My brother, Chief Abraham. Yeah, man. We gotta learn to humble ourselves. And it's something that we gotta learn because we were taught to be proud. Like it's something cool or something. We're just hurting ourselves. And he said, I will cause it to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. God said he gave us a command to see if we're going to keep it exactly the way he commanded to prove us if we was going to walk in his law or no. By one simple command, he could tell if you're going to serve him or not. Tom Sheen, verse 5.
And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily.
He gave them the command. On the 6th day, you're going to prepare what you bring in. What's the word for prepare? Hekinu. Prepare. To get things ready. To prepare. This is also part of the rules of the Shabbat day. That's why you got to read here a little, you got to read there a little. And the book will explain how to do certain laws. You got to prepare for the Shabbat. You cannot prepare on the Shabbat. You cannot prepare your food. It got to be cooked already. You can make a sandwich because everything is prepared already. The bread is baked. Whatever you putting on the sandwich, maybe some vegan deli slices or whatever you making your sandwich with, falafels or whatever you making your sandwich with, or if it better be some clean meat, and you better make sure you know how it died, and you better have gotten all the blood out. Maybe it's a fried piece of salmon or something. Nice fish sandwich or something, but it's already made. You can't fry it up on Shabbat. Can't bake no bread on Shabbat. And don't tell me, well, if making a sandwich preparing, then making a plate is preparing then. Because you putting the food on your plate in a certain order, one thing on top of the other. It's the same thing you do to make a sandwich. You put it in the plate on a certain order, one thing on top of the other. It's the same thing. Come on, look, let's stick to what we know, what these words mean, and let's stop adding. And you got to do research, man. We got to do research to find out what prepare means, what work means, because these are key to whether we're going to show that we believe God or not, whether we're going to serve God or no. So by this one law, God was able to determine, to prove us. The word for prove is anasenu. And it also means to tempt. It also means to test. So God's going to tempt us and test us to prove whether we love him and whether we believe him. And these tests are not always going to be comfortable. Most of the tests that God puts us through to test if we believe him or not, or to test our faithfulness, or to test if we love him or not, are going to cause you to suffer. It's going to bring about some type of suffering to see if you are going to try to remedy this suffering with the works of your own hands and go outside of the commandment to do things your way, to make yourself more comfortable, or you're going to endure this suffering for the sake of keeping the command exactly the way it's written, because if I keep it exactly the way it's written, I cannot remedy the situation myself, and then I will have to endure this discomfort, this struggle, this pain, this lack that I'm going through for the sake of my God, for the sake of his commandments. And that's the bottom line. We call it punishment half the time. And we have a messed up concept because our pride gets in the way and tells us that we're being punished. Not being punished. We're being chastised. We're being proven. Chastisement is to make you better. When you whoop your child, you're doing it to correct him so that he corrects his ways. It's a means of discipline, that the child will correct their ways and change to walk upright. It's the same thing when God chastises us. Whatever is happening to us in life that is causing some type of suffering or some pain, some discomfort, is because God is testing us to see if we're going to hold on to his laws. He's testing us. Hey, sit up. He's testing us to see if we're going to keep his commandment or no. If you don't do it exactly the way it's written, you don't believe God. If we don't keep it exactly the way it's written, we don't love God. Bottom line. And it shall come to pass, verse 6, Tamshi.
And Moses and Aaron said unto all the children of Israel, at even then ye shall know that the Lord hath brought you out from the land of Egypt.
Yeah, you know why? You know why he had to tell them? At even you're going to know that the Lord brought you out from the land of Egypt? Because I see y'all going and talking and complaining to Moses. Like you think Moses did it. You know, and when I read this, I had to put myself in their shoes. And I said, well, yeah, because, you know, it's the people that don't believe God, right? This is why most of them died in the wilderness. There's a people that didn't believe God. They grew up in Egypt. They followed the gods of Egypt. They walked like Egyptians. They lived their life as Egyptians, so just like us today in America, living like Americans, walking the walk of America, right? So they're just like us. We're just the same. We don't believe God either, right? And we also follow the ways of the gods of America, right? Let's be truthful and honest with ourselves. Let's stop playing this high and mighty game where we think we're without sin and this holier than thou attitude where we look down our noses at everybody else. That's not respected in God's eyes. We read the book of Ezra, 2nd Ezra and the Apocrypha, and you will find out what attitude we're supposed to have, right? Even if you are right, even if you are innocent, which we are not. But it just shows what type of humility and what type of meekness we're supposed to walk with and how we're supposed to speak. Right? And so they come into Moses and complaining because they grew up in Egypt where they see sorcerers and wizards perform these great acts you know, all day, every day. It's nothing. You saw what happened. Moses threw down the rod and it turned into a serpent. And Pharaoh said, Pharaoh didn't go, whoa, what is going on here? Pharaoh said, Janus, Jambres, show him, do the same thing. And they threw down or they made snakes or whatever too. Same thing, threw down their rods and turned into snakes too. And God showed his superior power over their art of magic. And Moses' snake or serpent or rod swallowed up theirs, right? To show that God's power is greater. But it wasn't a surprising thing for them to see that. Pharaoh didn't go, yeah, but did you see the second sign? He put his hand in it and came out leprous. Oh, man, I'm scared now. No, he didn't care. He was like, man, get out of here. Get out from my sight, man. They didn't believe. They didn't all believe in Elohim. That's true. They didn't. And this is why they kept coming to Moses when they got hungry. He said, hey, man, you better give us water or we're going to kill you. So they didn't believe God did it. Don't forget when they came to the Red Sea, God didn't come down and part the Red Sea. The pillar of fire was behind them, between them and the Egyptians. And God said to Moses, what you waiting for, man? The rod is in your hand. You do it. You part the sea. To give Moses that position in the eyes of the people, that they would look to know that he's the deliverer that God sent to them. Instead, because they don't believe God, because they were used to seeing magic in Egypt, they just went, whoa, Moses is a bad magician. You see what he did? He parted the waters. Yo, man, Moses is better than all Pharaoh's magicians. Don't give it up for Moses. And that's how they looked at it. And so we got to put ourselves in their shoes. So instead of shaking our heads at them when we read this, go, I can understand why they felt that way and why they kept coming to him, because this is a people that didn't believe God and they only believed the sight of their eyes. This is why when Moses told them God is going to bring us to a promised land that flow with milk and honey, they can't see it because a fool's eyes are in the extents of the earth is what it translates to. It says in the ends of the earth in English. It says in the extents of the earth, which means a fool can only see what's here present in this earthly realm. They can only see what's in front of their face. They can't see things. They can't believe enough to see things that haven't happened yet. A wise man's eyes are in his head. He can see inside his head the vision of the thing that he believes. That's why a wise man can see the world to come as if it's real. And to him, it is real. It's like he's there now. And he knows what he got to do to get to it. He got to sacrifice and he got to endure all of the pain, the suffering, the struggles, the tests of this life, the temptations of this life in this earthly realm in the flesh in order to get to that vision that he sees, that he believes in his mind. That's what that verse means, by the way, in Proverbs. A fool's eyes are in the extents of the earth, but a wise man's eyes are in his head. It doesn't mean his eyeballs are in the eye sockets. It means he can see what he believes. And that's what makes him wise, because he could believe God with blind allegiance as if he is already there. He believes the truth. He can see the truth even in a world, in an environment full of lies. Truth is the only deliverer from sin. Yeah. Because these laws are all truth. That's why the stone truths is what I call them. They were engraved in stone. And they hold the keys to all life. If we just stick to what they say and do what the words say. And then, okay, Tamshi, verse 7.
And in the morning, then ye shall see the glory of the Lord, for that he heareth your murmurings against the Lord. And what are we that ye murmur against us?
Yeah, because they didn't know. So Moses had to tell them. He said, look, now you're going to see at even, you're going to find out that the Lord brought you out of the land of Egypt. It wasn't me. It wasn't us. It wasn't Moses and Aaron. And in the morning, then you're going to see the glory of the Lord. For that he heard your murmurings against him, against the Lord. Don't think that he can't hear you. And what are ye that you murmur against us? What you complaining about me for? I'm little old me. I ain't nobody. It's God's commandments. Why we got so much to say about people that's just speaking the word of God? I think what it is we really, it's not that we don't like the words of God. You know what it is? We're miserable. We're not happy with ourselves. And because we're not happy with ourselves, we want to make ourselves feel better by pointing the finger to show that somebody else is worse than me. And that is my comfort. Because since I'm not happy with myself, I comfort myself by saying other people are more wicked than me. Yeah. There we go. That feels better now, don't it? Yeah, I got you, self. I got you. I'm gonna make you feel better. Instead of rubbing this in my chest and humbling myself and fixing my ways to gain acceptance of God, I feel better just by saying, well, what about him? What about them? Well, they do it too, and they cut off, and they wicked, and I ain't that wicked. But when the truth is, we all wear the same size shoe, and we all in the same boat. So that mentality is only hurting us. It's not helping us. I mean, not us as a whole, each individual, it is not helping. We're not helping ourselves by thinking that way, by feeling that way, by acting that way, by speaking that way. What are ye that you murmur against us? And Moses said, this shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full. For that the Lord heareth your murmurings, which you murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. Had to clarify to them once again. You ain't got to like the teacher, but you better like the words that come out of this book. And this is why it behooves all of us to read the law every day. That way, when the teacher says it, we'll recognize that it's the words of God and not the teacher's words. And instead of getting mad at the teacher, we say, whoa. Better watch how you feel about those words right there, because those are the words of God. I may not like him, but I better like the words because they're not his words. They're God's words. The reason why we don't like it is because we're not ready to conform to it. The reason why we don't like the person is because when they speak the words from the book, whether it's the rebuker or the teacher or the messenger or whoever God sent to you, is because we're not ready to humble ourselves. We're proud. We're not ready to humble ourselves to the words of the law. Tom Sheep, verse 8. You back? Good. Let's go.
And Moses said, this shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full, for that the Lord heareth your murmurings which ye murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord.
Tamshi.
And Moses spake unto Aaron, saying unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he hath heard your murmuring.
Now he told them all, come near before the Lord. Meaning when they came near before the Lord, it was to the face of the tabernacle, from before the tabernacle. That's where they were called to. Tamshi.
When the Lord spake unto, wait, hold up.
And it came to pass.
Yeah, and it came to pass as Moses spake unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud.
This is what he meant when he said, at even, you shall know that the Lord had brought you out from the land of Egypt. Because at even, they saw the cloud appear. It was a cloud and fire by night, right? Right. So just keep this in mind when it says at even. What verse was that? 10. Okay. They looked toward the wilderness. Behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. Okay. And this was at even. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, Tamshi.
Spoke unto Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, at even ye shall eat flesh and in the morning you shall be filled with bread, and you shall know that I am the Lord.
And at
your
even
God.
when they said you're gonna see you're gonna know that the Lord brought you out of the land of Egypt, that's when the quails came. Before the even, in the later part of the day, and the east wind came and blew in a whole population of quails, and the quails covered the camp. And it came to pass that at even that the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew round about the camp. And we read last week when Solomon described that and compared the manna to dew or to ice, right? Water droplets, right? So at even they saw the quails, and in the daybreak, he said, and in the morning you shall see the glory of the Lord. And that was the manna. So at even was the quails for us to know that God brought us out of Egypt, and the daybreak was the manna for us to see the glory of the Lord. Mm-hmm. So even though we complained about food, God still fed us. And he said, oh yeah, you won't complain that you had flesh in Egypt? Well, I ain't giving you nothing to eat now. Now you're going to suffer more. See how God shows us how we should treat people? Even when you're dealing with your children, even dealing with your household, you see how we should deal with people? They complained and God fed them. The same thing they complained about, he gave it to them. But here's the thing. There's a lesson being taught here. Because the manna is coming with only the manna, right, came with a command of how much to gather. The quails did not. So you should look at that and say, oh, well, if it was a certain amount, maybe I shouldn't be taking all these whole bunch of quails. We're going to see where God don't like gluttony. Tamshi.
And it came to pass that at even the quails came up and covered the camp. In the morning the dew lay around about the host.
About the host.
And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoar frost on the ground. As
small as little ice particles. This is what the little scaly thing, or what does it say here? A small round thing, right? As the hoar frost on the ground. That was the manna.
And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, it is manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, this is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat.
Okay, it's not an accurate translation, because when the children of Israel saw, they said to one another, manhu, what is it? For they knew not what it was. And that's why they call it manna, because it means, what is it? Right? And Moses said unto them, it is the bread which the Lord had given you to eat. Okay, Tamshi.
This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. Gather of it every man according to his eating, an omer for every man according to the number of your persons. Take ye every man for them which are in his tents.
Right. So the command came as far as the manna. Gather you every man according to his eating, an omer. God didn't say, well, for the big guy, he could take 2 omers. And for the little guy, he could take 1 omer. No, because there is a set portion for what is acceptable, for what is necessary for a man. It don't matter how big you are. An omer is enough for a man. So just because the guy is bigger, don't mean he should take more. He should still take an omer. And if he took more, well, we're going to find out what happened. According to the number of your persons shall he take it, every man for them that is in his tent. So however many people was in his tent, that's how many omers he gathered, regardless of their size or age. Everyone got an omer. Tamshi.
And the children of Israel did so and gathered some more, some less. And when they did meet it with an omer, he that gathered much hath nothing over, and he hath gathered little hath no lack.
Okay, well, this is what I had to look this up in Hebrew, because when they did meet it with an omer, when they did meet, M-E-T-E, it means to measure. When they did measure it with an omer, that's what it says in Hebrew also. It said he that gathered, what did it say?
They gathered.
Read that verse again, 18.
And when they did meet it with an omer, he that gathered much had nothing
right
over.
So he that gathered much had nothing over, and he that gathered that little had no. That don't sound right to me in English, because if you gathered a lot, how you gonna have nothing over? And if you had a little, gathered a little, how you gonna have no lack? What it says in Hebrew, how it translates, is to when they measured it according to an omer, or to the omer, it says, and they did not have an excess, and it was not in excess, whether more or less. Lo hexir, they did not lack. So whenever they measured an omer, whenever they measured it by the omer, then they had nobody was in lack. Everyone was satisfied. That's what it means. Going back to where Chief Shammah started his teachings today. Only the wicked are unsatisfied. If you're unsatisfied, you are not thankful. If you complain, you are unsatisfied. If you are unsatisfied, you are not thankful. If you are not thankful, you will not show your thanks and appreciation through actions toward God. If you complain, we show that we are not satisfied and we are complaining against God. Because isn't he the one that gives us everything that we have? Isn't he the one that decided whether you're going to have an abundance or lack? Right? Because all things are according to him. But, but again, every man gets according to the works of his own hands. So God chose to give me a little, then it must have been something wrong with the works of my hands. God chose to give me abundance. Well, that could mean many reasons. They can say, well, God pleased with me. No, it means that now maybe this is a test to see what you're going to do with it. Are you going to do the right thing? Or maybe God gave it to the guy that would give because he knows he's going to do the right thing with it. Or maybe God gave it to the guy as a test to see if he's going to do the right thing with it, and he did not do the right thing with it. If we don't walk around with this mentality that we must pat ourselves on the back, or that in our prosperity we must be doing something right, and we don't walk around with that mentality, because that's not wise to think like that, then maybe we might be able to receive the messages and understand the tests that God is putting us through to see if we believe him or not, to see if we love him or not. And then we would err less. We would err much less. We would sin much less. But it takes humility to think that way. Tamshi, verse 19.
And Moses said, let no man leave of it till the morning. Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses, but some of them left of it until the morning.
Wait a minute. Let no man leave of it till the morning. You mean it came up before the sunrise? Isn't that what we read last week? God did that to test them and gave a command for them to don't leave it to the morning, right? Of the following day too, is what it also meant, right? But also it was a certain time that we're going to read here where, matter of fact, let me not spoil it. Tamshi, verse 20.
Notwithstanding, they hearkened not unto Moses, but some of them left of it until the morning, and it bred worms and stank, and Moses was wroth with them. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating, and when the sun waxed hot, it melted. Okay. The same manna that they were told not to leave of it until morning, it lasted all that day without melting. Once they gathered it, it didn't melt.
if they gathered over and try to leave some over till the morning, it bred worms and stank. It rotted. But when they gathered how much they were supposed to gather, it satisfied them. No man had any lack. The same manna that they beat into mortar and cooked it and baked it into cakes with fire didn't melt in the fire while they baked it, but it melted when the sun waxed hot every day. All that wasn't gathered that stayed on the ground, because there was more than enough for everybody to get an omer and still leave some left on the ground. As soon as the sun waxed hot, it melted just like dew. But yet the once it was gathered and they baked it, it withstood the fire and did not melt. That's amazing. That's what happens when you follow the commands to the letter. It always works in your favor. It will you look, people will call it miracles. It will defy the laws of physics just to work in your favor. What? Anything. Because you believed God enough to follow his commandment to the letter without adding your own opinion. And this is why God can send wisdom to those of us that show we're going to keep the commandment to the letter and make sacrifices and endure the suffering, endure the finger pointing, endure the scrutiny, endure the pain, the suffering of whatever we got to go through, the lack, whatever we got to go through, missing out on a job, missing out on some money, whatever it is you got to go through. People ain't going to like me, whatever it is. You endure all of that for the sake of God's commandments. You watch and see how things work out in your favor. You watch and see how much God can send wisdom to you to teach you new things that he ain't showing everybody. Things out of this book that you read 100 times already, but now finally you see this in this chapter, and it gives you a better understanding of what is important to God, what is going to help you find favor in his eyes. The right way to think, the right way to feel that is acceptable to him, the right way to speak, the right treatment of how you're supposed to treat people, who you're supposed to treat the right way, which is everybody. Righteousness does not discriminate. I hope we're starting to learn that. Righteousness does not discriminate. You can't be righteous to this guy over here and treat this guy like a piece of garbage because, well, you know, he don't serve God. So God told me to treat him like garbage. Is that what it says? I don't know which book you're reading, but I ain't never read any of the righteous men in the book carry it that way. I could disregard him because he don't mean nothing to God. Let God decide that. You treat people, all people, the way God commanded us to treat them. He gives us laws for our brothers, and he gives us laws for how we should treat your neighbor. And if you're confused to who your neighbor is, this is where you got to read here a little, you got to read there a little. Because he said, the Egyptians, thy neighbors. He said, Nebuchadnezzar, my servant. Did Nebuchadnezzar keep these laws? I don't know, I'm just curious. Anybody read something that I didn't read? Nebuchadnezzar kept these laws? I just want to know, because maybe I got that part confused. He served idols, didn't he? But yet he followed the command when God commanded him. See, God don't condemn a kindergartner for not knowing calculus. God did not send Jonah to Nineveh to say, if you guys don't keep all the commandments that I gave to Israel, then I won't destroy this city. No. He said, amend your ways. And they did what they knew to be right. And God backed up off of them and did not destroy the city. We over here mad at the world because they not keeping the laws that he commanded us. And we not keeping them. Imagine that. Man, we just telling on ourselves before God. Calling everybody wicked about how they don't keep it. They don't deserve mercy. They don't deserve love. They don't deserve no goodness from me. Shoo. Who you? We don't deserve it. We don't keep the commands that God commanded our fathers, that God commanded us. They doing what they supposed to do. You supposed to be a walking, living example and teaching them righteousness by the way you walk, to be a light to the nations. By the way, that never got omitted. God never said, oh, forget it. You guys not keeping the laws now. You won't be a light to the nations no more. He never took that back. He said he made us a light to the nations, period. We still supposed to be a light to the nations. He didn't say, oh, forget about that part now, because you guys already messed up. No way you can be a light to the nations no more. Never mind, that's not required of you anymore. What book are we reading, man? Why are we so stout-hearted against doing good to people? You God now? That you want to be the judge? You can't even judge yourself righteously. You can't even call a spade and say, I committed wickedness. But yet you want to decide who deserves good, who deserves mercy? You're backwards. You don't go like that, man. One law, one code, one principle of righteousness, of what it means to be righteous. And righteousness does not discriminate. Get off your high horse, O Israel. You want to get right with God? You got to accept all of these truths that the book is teaching us, because they're the key to life. Stone truths, which mean they don't change. Whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, whether we go by it or not, they don't change. We better change and get with it, or else we ain't gonna make it. Tom Shee.
And it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man, and all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. And he said unto them, this is that which the Lord hath said, tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which ye will bake today, and seethe. That
seethe means to boil. In Hebrew it says to cook is the word, or to bake.
That ye will seethe, and that which remaineth over lay up for you.
It's another reason why we got to learn the Hebrew, man, or look it up or ask somebody, because we make assumptions. You see, they boiled the manna because King James put seethe, and seethe means to boil. They baked it. Tofet, tofu, efu. It means to bake, to cook. Also, when we read that, the word seethe in the book of Samuel, it means to cook. They didn't necessarily boil it. We got to stick to what it says. It's better to say, I don't know, than to make statements. It's better to say, and this is a problem, man. People have a problem saying, I don't know. But here's something that I learned. When you say, I don't know, you leave yourself open to learning. When you make statements as if you know already, 9 times out of 10, you're not even scratching the surface of what there is to know about that subject, and you think you know everything there is to know. I have to ask this question. And I don't have the answer, but I do know what the book says. And I know what it's not. If we got to take 7 days of soaking the meat before we can get the blood out, changing the water however many times a day, salt water, in refrigeration, how did Abraham kill a calf and feed the angels flesh, who he thought were men, the same day? It must be something we don't know, that you could get the blood out in a day. because I'm sure God angels would have said something, or God and his angels, because it was 2 angels and God that he fed that to. If it had the blood in it, and Abraham ate too. So I know Abraham ate with the blood. So, I mean, somebody got to explain these things, because if it can't be explained, we can't make certain statements and be like, this the only way. No, it's not. We got to leave ourselves open to learning and stick to what the book says. If anything, say, I don't know how. I don't know how they did it, but don't say if you ain't doing it like this, you're doing it wrong, because then you're saying Abraham did it wrong. Let's be, well, then we got to say that, brother, if you're doing it from frozen meat that's coming out the store. We got to be specific, because then we're making statements that are not full truths. So we need to break down the law according to exactly what the book says, and the parts that we don't know. It's okay, man. It's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay, because I don't know. But I know it's something else to it that we need to learn. And I ain't all bent on eating the meat like that. But if I did, and when I did what I did to get the blood out. When that water was poured out, it was no more pink, no more red in it. And the water was clear. And when I pressed it and squeezed it, nothing came out but clear water. Other than that, we got to do it ourselves. We got to learn. I don't care if you chat GPT, YouTube it, watch a video, go to somebody that has a farm, ask somebody that kills animals. We got to learn before we go making statements, before we start condemning people, because we don't know. And it came to pass on the 7th day, they went out. Okay, wait a second. Let me back up a little bit. And they laid it up into morning as Moses bade, and it did not rot. But we start from verse 22. So when they came and gathered, they said, I'm going to go over this for you. You can start from 24 when I tell you. They gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers. By the way, for bread, it says lechem, which is another word for food also in Hebrew. It doesn't only mean bread. 2 omers for each one. 2 omers for each person on the 6th day. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. That tells me that the rulers weren't paying attention. The rulers weren't always correct, but they were still learning. So it's okay. They came to Moses instead of condemning people. And they came to Moses and said, hey, they're gathering twice as much. But Moses told them earlier in the chapter, on the 6th day, gather twice as much. So they did the right thing. The people were paying attention, and they did what God said. They showed their obedience. That's right, Chief Sharma. If it's frozen, then that's what we got to do. And that's the part that needs to be explained. If it's frozen, then you better soak it with fresh salt, changing the water daily. Right. And so, and you're going to see that meat is not going to have that color to it once all the blood is out. I agree with that. That is correct. You made a true statement. But we have to let the people know that if it's frozen, because that's what happens when the blood is frozen into it. See, we don't live like our fathers lived. We don't live the way they live. We buy our meat frozen out of the store. We didn't even kill it. And that's another thing. You shouldn't be buying no meat out the store because you don't know how it died. And that's very important, that if we're going to tell people that they need to soak their meat, the first thing you better make sure of before you even buy it is you better know how it died. And you also better know that that animal did not have an organic defect, because that's also in the law. Nebela uterefa, an animal with an organic defect. And if you don't have someone that has knowledge of veterinarian skills, or somebody that raises cattle to be able to look at their hoofs and their gums and their eyes and their nose, to be able to read the signs to tell if the animal is sick while they're alive, before they cut it open, before they see tumors attached to certain organs, There are certain ways to look at the animal to know if he's sick while he's alive. And if you don't have somebody with that knowledge, don't eat the meat. Simple as that. You have to be able to go through those things, and we can't trust somebody's word. Oh, no, it wasn't sick. Don't we say that all the time? When in doubt, do without. How you know for sure? So I shouldn't be soaking no meat that I don't know how it died. Whether I bought it out the store, because if you ain't going to find out how it died buying it out the store, and you ain't going to find out if it was sick if you bought it out the store. And I'm going to tell you right now, from the research that I did on the cattle industry in this country, and that supplies meat to the for mass production to be sold in stores, all of them are sick. All of them. Some of them cows, they got to drag off of, they got to use pulleys and forklifts to get these cows off of the trucks when they're delivered to the slaughterhouses. They got pus coming out their nose. Some of them got tumors sticking out the side of their head. Some of them can't even walk. They're fed hormones and steroids when they're young to make their bodies and their muscles grow so fast that they turn into adults when they're still young, when they're still teens, or as a teen, because cows' years and times of growth is different. They don't call it, oh, he's a teenager. But his bones are not fully matured by the time he's got the body of a mature cow. So because his bones are still brittle and not fully developed, his body can't bear the weight of all the muscles that grew on him from all these hormones and steroids that they plugged him up with through the feed, that his bones break from under him, and the cow's legs break while he's standing up. And you know what happens after that? They don't throw him away. They don't kill him and go bury him somewhere. They leave him like that, and his broken leg gets infected. And then infection spreads through the rest of his body, through his bloodstream, and he develops tumors. And they're not throwing that cow away. They're going to sell it for meat in the stores. And that happens to all of them because they're not being grown properly. They're being fed a feed that causes them to grow faster, to speed up this process, to hurry up and get the meat onto the conveyor belts. They don't care about us, man. And they for surely don't care about the laws of God. So you shouldn't be eating nothing out the stores. Don't let me get started on the rape racks. Yeah, where a human sticks their whole arm into the cow's body. Yeah. So that she could get pregnant. Yeah. And they're artificially inseminated. Yeah. No bull is involved. Oh, by the way, how they get what they need, the seed from the bull to be able to inseminate the female? Well, they do some sodomitish stuff with that. You figure it out, unless I have to go into detail. Which I shouldn't be speaking and saying certain words on Shabbat, especially when there's children present. So we should speak in a manner that is educational, where the adults can understand and the children can ask questions, and leave it up to the parents on how they want to explain certain things, instead of me getting all graphic and using certain words that we would use in the trap. We have to be careful, man. We have to be careful. Eating meat is a very meticulous process. I did it, man. I ate lamb. You know how long it used to take me? Hours to get the fat off. Not talking about the blood. The blood take a few days, or when I did it, it took a two-day process. And yes, when I washed the meat or when I soaked it after changing the salt water 4 times a day, because it was never frozen, I could squeeze it and nothing came out. Nothing came out. No red, no pink, no nothing. And then I had to boil it after that, because I read in the book where they boiled it, and he said, "This, I'm getting it from the book." And he said he stuck his fork into the cauldron or pot, and whatever the fork grabbed and pulled out, he took for his portion. And then the servant said, "Wait, master, at least let the fat be burned presently." And it says in the Hebrew, let the fat be burned first before you take it out. So that means to say that they boiled it to get the fat off. But all the fat don't come off when you boil it. You're going to see that layer of grease pile up at the top because that's the fat melting. And then you're going to take that meat out. You're going to wash it and you're going to start to peel it apart. And you're going to see layers of fat in between the meat. And you got to peel that, little man. When I'm done, I had a shredded meat. You ain't going to have no steak. You're going to have shredded meat. And you better make sure you got good eyes and be able to take the time to peel all that fat off. You can't be impatient. And when you got that pile of shredded meat, you're going to see it's going to be a lot less than what you started with, than that piece of meat you started with. And most of that is going in the trash. And then when you pull that fat off, you're going to have some pieces of meat that's stuck to that. That's stuck to that fat too, that you're going to throw away. Because you're going to make sure, if you were trying to make sure that you got all the fat off, you ain't going to be pulling off all the little pieces of meat because it might have a little piece of fat stuck to it that you can't see. So if you're going to do this with circumspection and do it right, you're going to go through a process, man. A process, hours in preparing that meat. And you ain't eating no steak. I'm sorry. It ain't happening, or else you eating fat. Now, maybe I just don't know what they knew. And that's why they were able to do it differently. Maybe the animals today have more fat on it than the animals back then. I don't know. But I'm not going to pretend I know. I'm going to do what I got to do to make sure that I'm following what the books say. And I'm not going to condemn anybody and tell you if you don't do it this way or that way, because there's a lot more that we have to learn. I'm going to leave it at that. And he said, this is that which the Lord has spoken. Tomorrow is a solemn rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake that you will bake today, and seed that you will seed. That you will, and all that remaineth over, lay up for you to be kept until the morning. And they laid it up until the morning as Moses bade, and it did not rot, neither was there any worm therein. Right? Because this is the only day where you could take a double portion and leave it up to the next day, because you can't do work on the Shabbat, which tells me gathering is work. When the man gathers sticks, it's not because, oh, he was about to build a fire, so God killed him for his intentions. No, God don't kill you for your intentions. He kills you, or the penalty that comes, the penalty of death that comes from a sin have to happen after the sin. So he died because he was gathering. Gathering is work. Work is a sin on the Shabbat day. And that's why they couldn't gather the manna, because it was work. So they had to gather twice as much on Friday in preparation, on the 6th day in preparation. And then whatever they left over, which was the second omer, because you can only grab 2 omers. You can't grab more than that. And when they grabbed the second omer did not rot, and it did not stink, and it did not breed worms, because it was exactly according to the prescribed order of God. Go ahead, Zacharias. What's your question? You had a question, Zacharias. You want to ask? Okay. When you get to it, I'll do my best to answer it according to the book. Oh, here we go. 3. It talks about the portions of the Kohanim. One of the things listed is the stomach. From what I'm reading, it's the actual stomach intestine. You are correct. And that's what I went over last week, if you watch the teachings from last week. And I talked about how every offering is not the same. And we read last week where he said the fat of the inwards and all of that will be his sons and his sons do, Aaron and his sons do, and their portion. And I mentioned that they didn't eat of the intestines, they didn't eat of the inwards, they didn't eat any part that he said was for the priest and his portion. Didn't mean that they ate it. They used the fat and different parts of the animals for different things. If you look up like how to cure leather, they use animal fat to cure leather. If you look up what soap is made out of, there's tallow to use in the making of certain kinds of soap, and they use it to make soap, which in the book is called nitre in the Old English, right? So they use different parts of the animal no, I don't believe a moose has a hoof. Okay, so they used the different parts of the animal, including the inwards and the fat, when it was given to the priest for specific offerings where it wasn't burned on the altar, or it wasn't commanded to be discarded, or it wasn't commanded to be burned. If it was given to the priest for their portion, they used it for certain things in making certain things, and they did not eat it. So the priest didn't get to eat fat, and then everyone else was not allowed. The priest didn't get to eat the inwards of the stomach or the intestines, and everybody else was not allowed. So, no, it's not only for food. When it says their portion, it doesn't only mean for food. Yeah, so they used it to make other things. And again, reading here a little, reading there a little, we learn different things from the book. And that's why you always hear me say the statement that the book tells us what words mean, right? You know, and again, reading in Hebrew, we understand, okay, a moose does have hoofs. Thank you, Booby. So if a moose have hoofs, is it cloven foot? And it has cloven foot, and then it chews the cud, which means it has more than one stomach, then it would be clean. So I'm not sure, but you could look it up and find out, Google it, find out if a moose's hoofs are cloven, and does he chew the cud? And if the answer is yes to those 3 criteria that God gave us for the animal to be clean, then a moose would be clean. From what I found out, giraffes are cloven foot and have a hoof, and they also chew the cud. See giraffes like this. You know, did our fathers eat it? I never read it, but according to law, they fit the criteria. So I'm not going to argue with the book. It is what it is. And then, you know, that's just for us to do our research. You know, I ain't gonna say, well, I would never. If I'm starving and I happen to be in Africa one day and all the land around it is dry and there's nothing vegetation for me to eat, and you know we got 100 giraffe, then we just might be hunting giraffe that day. I don't know, but I would never say never. You know what I mean? But I would always make sure that I'm gonna stick to exactly what the book say, and then even though I read that, I'm gonna check and make sure. You know, when I see a giraffe. You know what I mean? And, you know, find out if his hoof is cloven footed after we make that kill. And then we cut him open. Oh, I see more than one stomach. All right, it's good to go. We eating giraffe tonight, fam. You know, but, you know, I'm just saying that, you know, whatever is acceptable to the law has to be acceptable to me, has to be acceptable to us. You know, I thought I'll never eat a cricket. I tasted one, though, because the law says they're clean, right? By the way, it doesn't say beetles in the Hebrew. It says crickets. This is also where it's very important that we read the law in Hebrew, or that we look up these words, because a beetle is unclean, and it says cricket instead of beetle. So yes, I ate a cricket, and you know it was dried and it had habanero spice on it, and it didn't taste like much, but I just said, let me try it. You know, and see what the book said. You know. But anyway, these are things that you know, we got to stick to exactly what the book says, and you can choose to do the way you want to do it, but make sure that your choice is in accordance with the law. That's it. That's the bottom line. All right. And they laid it up to the morning. Moses. Okay. Moses said, eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today you shall not find it in the field. Tamshi, verse 26.
6 days ye shall gather it, but on the 17th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people of the seventh day for to gather, and they found none.
Right, and that showed that they failed the test. They did not believe God, because God told them there would none be found. So he knew that everybody that went out to look for it, everybody that gathered more than an omer, proved that they didn't believe God. Simple as that. Now, another thing I want to point out in this chapter, this is Moses telling them what God said. This has nothing to do on whether or not they believed Moses. Moses gave them the law. When it says God spoke to Moses, it don't say God spoke to the people. Only one time he spoke to the people, and that was at the foot of Mount Sinai. After that, he spoke to Moses, or he spoke to Moses and Aaron. And one time he spoke to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. That's it. And they're the only ones that heard God's voice in the midst of all these people. You could have been 1,000 people standing right next to them, and none of them would have heard God's voice except for Moses or except for Aaron, and that one time except for Miriam. Nobody else heard it. So now it's up to whether you're going to believe that Moses is telling you what God said. And if you say, man, I don't like Moses, I don't believe him, then God's going to say, well, you don't believe me. You know why? Because Moses was sent to deliver them, showing all these signs to prove that God sent him. And everything that he spake came to pass. So today, how you know if the teacher is speaking what the book say? You got to read the book. Simple as that. How you going to know if the teacher's speaking what the book say and you don't read the book? And now you're picking and choosing to believe or follow what the teacher's saying, thinking that I don't believe him. It's not me that you don't believe. It ain't Chief Shammah you don't believe. It ain't Chief Mikael you don't believe. Once we speak in what the book say, and you don't follow it, we don't believe God. Simple as that. But how you know if you don't read the book? See why I say it behooves all of us to read the book? I mean, this is our life we're talking about. How you dedicate your life to something that you have never studied? That's backwards. That don't make sense. Somebody in the streets come up and ask you questions and you delivering false information. And then they say, man, these people be doing this and this and that. And then somebody that actually reads it, that don't even live this way of life, a Christian got to come and correct them and tell them that's not what it says. This is what it says. Then how we look as a people? We giving a bad name to God. We're making the people speak against our God. And then it's our fault. The one that's spitting it wrong because you don't study. And you base your life on something and you choose not to study it? How? How? This is your life. This is what you say you about. This is our culture. How are we not studying who we are? What makes us Israel? What makes us God's people? Supposed to be an example of righteousness and don't study what righteousness is. This is backwards, man. We got to check ourselves daily. And you do that by reading the book daily. Otherwise, we're not returning to God. We're returning to something else, but it ain't God. Returning to the lust of our own hearts, maybe. Returning to the worldly things, maybe, but it ain't God. Excellent point. Or study it and then don't apply what we read it. Study it so we can tell other people where they're going wrong and don't apply it to ourselves. Good point, Zacharias. We got to stick to this, man. Every man must demand of himself. Yeah, I said man. I ain't going to say, hey, woman. The woman only going to do what the man allowed him to do. And the woman will fall in line if the man is walking upright. That's the way it works. You can't be walking crooked and they say, well, you ain't doing the law, woman. She like, what she might not tell you is in her mind going to say, well, you don't do it. What you bearing down on me for, Chief Hooga Hooga? You ain't bearing down on yourself like that, but you want to ride me all day. Ah, man, my teacher didn't teach that, man. He said, man, leave the girls alone. Leave the women alone. Somebody tell me I'm lying. All that new Chief of Chief Eleazar, let me know if I'm telling the truth or if I'm lying. He said, leave the women alone. He said, be men. With all no men strive to be one. So come on, man. Men, we got to step it up. And when you start stepping it up, your wife will start stepping it up. And just also know that I love my brother Nakshawn for this, man, and Governor Nakshawn. And it stuck with me from the first time he said it. Come on, son. God don't even force us. What I look like forcing somebody. I love my brother. It's the truth. God don't even force us. What I look like forcing somebody. If I forced you, you don't get no credit for it. I don't force my wife to do certain things. I put my foot down regarding what can and can't come in the house, what can and can't be done in the house, according to law, what God is going to charge me for. Whatever else, she chooses. I educate her, and I walk the walk, and she chooses to follow. And I ain't perfect. I'm still working on me. And I told her, you got to work on you. I can't work on you. I could educate you. I could encourage you. I could speak words of wisdom to you. I could tell you what the book says in understanding. But you know what? If she don't do it of her own free will, it don't count. She don't get the credit for it. I do. I love my wife. I want her to get the credit for it. So I speak to her. I speak to her heart so that she will see the wisdom in it. And it's better that way when it comes from a willing heart, because that's what God accepts. When we use our free will to do his will. And whatever she's doing that is not right by God in my house, then God will judge me for it. And I accept that. But God see and know why I'm moving the way I'm moving. And she come a long way, and I'm proud of her. And with that said, we all got a long way to go. So I'm going to go back to the statement I made earlier. Every man demand of thyself. Because every tub got to sit on his own bottom. And every day, when that day come, and we got to face our maker, he ain't going to say, oh, you corrected everybody just perfectly. But you didn't correct yourself. You show where everybody else was wrong, you making it to the quickening. You made it. You proved that everybody else was wrong. You did it. Yeah, that's right. Abraham commands his household. I command my household. I command my household. And there's the door if you don't like it. But also, I'm going to command me to make sure I live the right way before God as an example, as a walking example in my house. And certain things, when I see it, I rebuke. And certain things, over and over, it's gonna be addressed. And certain things is not gonna be just a rebuke. It's gonna be putting my foot down and making ultimatums and demands because it's law, and that's what God said he's gonna charge and what should not be in the house and what should not be going down in the house. And that is what it is. You could teach somebody to stop lying, but it's up to them to stop lying. And how I look teaching somebody to stop lying and then I'm lying. That's my point. So, yeah, be the man of your house and run it according to what we read in the book. Right? Everybody always saying, well, it's my house, my house, my house, my house. But we in everybody else's house, except ours. I'm going to run mine. You run yours, and let us demand of ourselves. And let us do that. And let us all step it up in the law. Because I'm here to encourage. I'm not here to tear nobody down. I'm here to encourage all of us to step it up. Us, I said, me included. I ain't perfect. I got faults too. Every tub gonna sit on its own bottom. We all gonna pay for our faults. And we gotta step on this double time. Return to him 10 times more. You can't dilly-dally. We ain't got no time. Ain't no man promised tomorrow. And the Lord said unto Moses, how long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? Because they still went out on the Shabbat day. See that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath, Tamshi, verse 29.
See, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath, therefore he given you the 6th day of the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day.
So he said, and the people rested. Don't go out of your place on the 7th day. Now people read that and say, you can't go out your house on the 7th day. That's not what he was talking about. He said, don't go out looking for manna. We saw the distance from the tabernacle to the furthest tent was 2,000 cubits. And when they congregated, they went to the tabernacle. So you can leave your house and don't walk more than 2,000 cubits. When you do the math, it's roughly a mile, a little less. We got to stick to what the books say. Telling people they can't go out their house. You can go out your house. Don't bear a burden out of your house. Oh, I gotta carry my keys. I gotta carry my ID. No, you don't. You do that when you don't believe God. I carry some money just in case. No, you don't. You're proud. Just do the way the law says. And wisdom is the principal thing. And I learned that from my teacher. So when there was danger outside, we didn't say we ain't going outside. No, we still took a walk. We still walked Princess Abia to the train station. But we had to had to strap up. We had to pack a weapon. Because we looked in the book of the Maccabees where it said, well, I mean, well, if we don't fight, then they just gonna kill us all on every Sabbath until we all dead. Man, sorry, Princess Abia, you gotta walk this one alone. Because you know, it's beef outside. We can't carry no burden. My teacher said, man, wisdom is the principal thing. Strap up. We ain't carry keys and IDs and money and all that extra stuff. Talking about, I got to carry my book. You know what I'm saying? No, you don't got to carry your book. You leave it at the place where you're going to worship, where you're going to congregate, or borrow a book while you're there. I'm not wiser than my teacher. And I ain't changing nothing. The order is established already. Tamshi.
And the house of Israel called the name thereof.
But let me make a statement. And if I don't have to go outside, then I don't need to bring a weapon with me. We did that because we was walking Princess, or we was going and visit the other camp or something, right? So if we don't have to, then we don't have to. Wisdom is the principal thing, man. We can't do the law without wisdom. Tamshi.
And the house of Israel called the name thereof manna, and it was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey.
Okay, the thing that tempered to every man's taste. Whoever gathered it, immediately when they gathered it, it tempered itself to taste whatever that guy liked. You want to play with God? But not the guy that made it more than an omer. It ain't gonna work for him that way. Let an omer of it. He said, and the house of Israel called the name of it manna. What is it? And it was like coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey. Everybody liked wafers made with honey. One part of the book said it tastes like whatever that man liked. To every man's taste buds. Tamshi.
And Moses said, this is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. Fill an omer of it to be kept for your generations, that they may see the bread wherewith I have fed you in the wilderness when I brought you forth from the land of Egypt.
And so that omer of manna that they put in that jar to be kept for the generations as a witness, it did not breed worms. It didn't stink. It didn't melt. They traveled through the wilderness with that. We don't know where that jar is today. It was to be laid up in the Holy of Holies next to the Ark of the Covenant. And that's what was laid up with it. That, the rod of Aaron that budded blossoms, almonds and blossoms, right? And they didn't rot, by the way, either. Wherever that rod is today, it ain't dried up and withered. It's going to stay that way. And it might be buried somewhere. So God don't make it fall into the wrong hands. We don't know where this stuff is. Or maybe somebody has it. And maybe God put it in the hands of whoever it is, whether that person is righteous or wicked, because he knows they're going to keep it. Just like God gave the Temple Mount to the Muslims. Because do you know that when they built their Mosque of Omar on top of the Temple Mount, they deny all archaeologists, they deny all excavations. Nobody could dig underneath there. God gave it to them because they were protected, not because they're right. Tom Shee.
And Moses said unto Aaron, take a pot and put an omer full of manna therein, and lay it up before the Lord to be kept for your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, so Aaron laid it up before the testimony to be kept. And the children of Israel did eat manna 40 years until they came to the land inhabited. They did eat manna until they came unto the borders of the land of Canaan. Now an omer is the 10th part of an ephah.
An omer is a measurement. An ephah is 10 omers. Right? And when it says laid up before the testimony is the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, testimony is the tablets with the commandments inside of the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, and they ate manna for 40 years until they came to a land inhabited. They did eat manna. We read in the book of Joshua that after the 40th year, they began to eat the corn of the land. It says in English, in the Hebrew it says produce. They began to eat once the land started to grow its first year of crops. They ate the produce of the land of Canaan. Okay, remember, because everything was already planted. So they ate the crops of that land the first year after crossing the Jordan. That's when they stopped eating manna. Now, somebody asked me, say, well, why would they complain if it was tempered to taste like what every man liked? And I said, well, if I give you your favorite food today and feed you that only for the next 40 years, you're going to tell me you ain't going to get tired of it? Yeah, we would. You know why? Because we're proud. We're not thankful. I could give you your favorite food, whatever you love the most. Rice and peas and coconut, macaroni and cheese, whatever you like, chocolate cake, whatever you like. Pasta, whatever you like. And you eat that every day for the next 40 years, I guarantee you're going to get tired of it. You're going to get tired of it before the first year is up. Now I want to touch on something to make a point. Because we keep hearing about this Shabbat starting during the day. We keep hearing about we have to do it according to the time in Jerusalem. And this is not what the book teaches. So let's go to the book of Leviticus. Go to chapter 23. I'm going to start from verse 26. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, verse 27.
Also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you, and ye shall afflict your souls, and offering made by fire unto the Lord.
So he said a day of atonement. Okay, so I've heard in this argument that people are saying when the book says day, it means daytime. So you telling me the day of atonement was only from sun up to sundown? Well, we're about to find out. Well, that's not true. And you shall do,
and you shall do no work in that same day.
In that same day, you shall do no work. In that same day. Okay, now God's going to tell us what that day is, how long that day is. In Hebrew, yom. So for all the Hebrew scholars out there that were saying yom only means daytime, let's see what the law is teaching us. Because the book tells us what words mean. Tom Shee. For it is, and you shall do no manner of work in that same day, verse 28. For it is a day of atonement.
And you shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God.
Uh-huh.
For whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall cut off from us.
He shall be cut off from among his people. Whatsoever soul is not afflicted in that same day. This is why we fast, because that's the affliction. You can't go and beat yourself and say, I was afflicted. You can't do it a different way. It means we fasted on this day. He shall be, whatever soul is not afflicted on that day. Now we're going to find out what that day is, how long that day is in a second. And we don't do it according to the exact prescription. We don't believe God and we don't love God, because our obedience is tested by whether we stick to the commandment according to the way that it is written to the letter. And if you're not afflicted that same day, shall be cut off from among his people. And whatsoever soul it be that doeth any manner of work in that same day, that soul will I destroy from among his people. Tom Shee, 31.
31. You shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings.
Statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Throughout your generations in all your dwellings. You do it according to the way you can do it where you live. So exactly the way it was prescribed, wherever you live. Now let's see. We ain't finished here. We got to get through the rest of these commands to do it the way. Tom Shee?
It shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and you shall afflict your soul.
Shabbat Shabbaton. It's the only other day besides the Shabbat day that's referred to as Shabbat. But it's not HaShabbat, mind you, in Hebrew. So it's not the Sabbath. It's a Sabbath of general strike, work stoppage, and complete rest. That's what Shabbaton means to you. And you shall afflict your souls. And
you shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of the month at even, from even to unto even. Shall ye celebrate your Sabbath? From
even to even shall you celebrate your Sabbath. It's not plural. It's not Shabtot. It's not Shabtot-kem, it's Shabbat-kem. You shall celebrate this Sabbath because it's the only other day beside the Sabbath, beside HaShabbat, is referred to as Shabbat in Hebrew. So from even to even, you celebrate this Sabbath. So they say, oh, well, that was only talking about the feast. I mean, the Day of Atonement is the only day that starts at even to even. But we just read where you telling me that a day is only daytime, and it talks about you shall do no manner of work in that same day. Whatsoever soul be not is afflicted on that same day, and whatsoever soul they do any manner of work in that same day, is talking about the day from even to even. So don't tell me that the word yom or the word day only applies to daytime. Because it just told us that you cannot do no work and you must be afflicted in that day. And it tells us that that day is from even to even. So even to even is the beginning and the end of a day. And if you think it's only the beginning and the end of that day, and you're going to decide that the day starts in the morning when nowhere in the book says that, other than by using the word day to substantiate your claim, then you got to go back to what we just read where it said day, but it was referring to even to even. You got to tell me why the rest of the times it says day only refers to daytime, and this time is the only time it's from even to even. You got to explain that to me using the book in Hebrew. Otherwise, it's gibberish. Otherwise, ashpag. Garbage, basura, trash. Somebody got another language? Help me out. Say it in another language. Because these people act like they don't understand English. Even in Hebrew. Hebrew scholars talking this garbage. You know why? Because they don't want to give up their Friday night fun. That's why. Because they don't want to have to tell the boss, I can't work that late on Friday when the sun goes down at 4:30, or else they're going to lose their job because they fear the boss more than they fear God. Matter of fact, I'm going to get down to the root. Because they love themselves more than they love God. And they can't stand losing their job and having to suffer at all for any amount of time for God's commandments. There's no covenant by sacrifice. You ain't gonna make it. You got to do it exactly the way it's written. You can't justify it. You can't change it to fit you. It's not on your schedule. It's on God's schedule. You got to do it the way it's written. And that's it. Here, you want to get further into it? Let's go back to chapter 22. Go back one chapter, scribe, and let's start from the first verse of chapter 22.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and to his sons that they separate themselves from the holy things of the children of Israel, and that they profane not my holy name in those things which they hallow unto me. I am the Lord.
Okay.
Say unto them, whosoever he be of all your seed among your generations, that goeth unto the holy things which the children of Israel hallow unto the Lord, having his uncleanness.
Hold on, I could answer that question for you, Capri. It don't say Friday to Saturday because that's not what the names of the days of the week were called back then. But I could show you in Genesis chapter 2, where he said the seventh day. The Lord rested on the seventh day, and he commanded us to observe the Shabbat on the seventh day. Do we need to go back to Leviticus 23? Because he says, speak unto the children of Israel, saying to them, the appointed times, the appointed seasons of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocation. These are my appointed seasons. 6 days shall work be done, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath of solemn rest. Now, you want to get technical and say, well, we don't know if this was the seventh day of the week. You are 100% correct. God told us he would take our Sabbaths away from us. He would take our feast days. He would take our new moons away from us, because when he gave it to us, we did not keep them according to the letter. And now we still ain't trying to keep it. And God allowed men to change the calendar. That was God taking it away from us. And this is the only day that we know as the seventh day. Now, if you want to start counting from the moon every 7 days, as that's your Sabbath from the new moon, be careful with that too, because the day they tell you is the new moon is the second day of the new moon, or is it? And I'm going to be specific now, because they tell us the new moon is 1 day. Our father celebrated 3 days. So the waning crescent and the waxing crescent before, and then the new moon, and then the waning crescent afterwards. If you have a new moon app, you know what I'm talking about. Those are the 3 days that our fathers observed. And those 3 days, you cannot see the moon with the naked eye. You need a telescope. You need a satellite picture or something. I ain't going to say there's no satellites, but it ain't for what they said it's for, and they're not where they say they are. But you need something to take a picture that's a magnified view of the moon to be able to see that waning and waxing crescent. Now, our fathers kept 3 days. Now, those 3 days are mentioned in the book of Samuel. I believe it's chapter 20, when David would not show up because he knew that Saul was out to kill him, and Jonathan sent his armor bearer he said, if I tell him, hey, the arrow is beyond you, then you keep it moving, because that means my father has evil towards you, towards you. And if I tell him, hey, the arrow is this way, then that means you could come on in. Everything is cool. And he shot, and he said, hey, armor bearer, the arrow is beyond you. So David took that as a sign and fled, and didn't show up to the celebration of the new moon that was kept in Saul's house, in the palace, and his seat was empty. And when Saul saw that he didn't show up the first day, he didn't say nothing. The second day, he said, surely he must be unclean. And then he asked Jonathan on the third day, and he said, where is David? And he said, he asked me leave if he could go sacrifice with his family at Bethlehem, because he was protecting his brother, who was on the side of God. That's another thing. There's a wisdom in everything. Jonathan wasn't no liar. He chose who was on the side of God. He chose the side of the truth. Yeah. So, yes, Chief Shammah, I see you keep putting that up there. I let you teach that part, man. We're making other points now about when the Shabbat starts. That is correct. If you were paying attention, Chief Shammah went over it, Leviticus 24, and it tells you when the Shabbat starts, because you must do this, certain offerings in preparation for the Shabbat day. And God states at even it shall be set up for the Sabbath, right? Okay, so We just shooting other points right now in the law to show what a day is and when a day starts. Now, it's on the 7th day of the week according to the calendar that we have now. So the calendar that we have now says Friday is the 6th day, Saturday is the 7th day. And if we go by the book, then Friday sundown is the end of Friday and the beginning of Saturday, which is the 7th day. Now we're going to find out what makes a day turn into a new day also. Tom Sheed, Leviticus 22.
Oh. Which one again?
Verse 3. And the priest shall put on his linen garment. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the wrong chapter. Say unto them, whosoever he be of all your seed throughout your generations that approach unto the holy things which the children of Israel hallow to the Lord, having his uncleanness upon him, that soul shall be cut off from before me. I am the Lord. And what man soever of the seed of Aaron is a leper or has an issue, he shall not eat of the holy things until he be clean. And whoso toucheth any one of those things is unclean, or one that is unclean by the dead, or from whomsoever the flow of seed goeth out. Verse 5.
Or whosoever toucheth any creeping thing whereby he may be made unclean, or a man of whom he may take uncleanness, whatsoever uncleanness he hath. The soul which hath touched any such shall be unclean until even.
He shall be unclean until even.
And shall not eat of the holy things unless he wash his flesh with water.
But if he bathes his flesh in water, then, verse 7.
And when the sun goes down, he shall be clean.
And when the sun is down, he shall be clean, because it's the beginning of a new day, and he must wash before sundown. I mean, I don't know, man. You have to read this book, man. See, stop reading all these crazy books, man. Stop reading commentaries. Stop reading Talmud. Stop reading the Shoot the Kangaroo. Stop reading all these other Jewish commentary books. Stop reading these books, Kabbalah. Stop reading all these books that are leaning towards devil worship, or that were written by so-called Jewish scholars and rabbis that were not written by the men that God appointed to write. That were not written by God's prophets of his holy people, the children of Israel, the prophets. Do you know that's why the book of Maccabees is not accepted? Because they say, well, that's after prophecy, and there was no more prophecy in that book. But again, all who adhere to the law exactly the way it's written, you're going to sound the same, whether you are 1,000 years later or 2,000 years later or 5,000 years ago. When you do it exactly the way that God has written, the message is going to be the same. The law is going to be the same. That's why the Maccabees reads the same way as the Kings and the Chronicles. And what they fought for was the same thing we read about what is in the law. They didn't do it differently. They didn't change nothing. They kept it exactly the way that Moses wrote it. And they were the last generation of our fathers to keep the laws of Moses exactly the way they are written. That's why we are the house of the Maccabees, because we the last family of this generation that's keeping the laws of Moses exactly the way it was written. And if you got some type of commentary or that you want to bring to the table, leave it at home. Bring the Torah to explain Torah. Bring the Hebrew to explain the Torah. Don't bring no other books. Don't bring your own justifications. Don't bring no strange writers. Keep it according to the books of Moses. That's how we understand the law, by reading it in the law. Presumptuous ones. And then we wonder why we can't agree. Because nobody want to stick to the law the way it's written. Well, I read in this other book. What did you read in the first 5? Tell me what it says in English, and then we'll check it out in Hebrew. Other than that, don't come plaguing God's people with that gibberish, teaching lies. And that's for whoever watching this video live or whoever click on it later. Tell them all to come watch this. Send them to come watch this video. Send them to watch the teachings of the House of the Maccabees earlier today when my brother was breaking down Leviticus 24. Tell them to come and watch and show us in the law. I challenge you to show us in the book of Moses, in the first five books, the Torah, anywhere where it says the day starts at daybreak. Anywhere where it says Shabbat begins in the morning. Anywhere where it says you should only begin the Shabbat according to the sundown in Jerusalem or according to where the moon rises and sets. I don't want to hear none of that. It's not in Torah. I said, man, why are you getting so mad? Because you're profaning and you're blaspheming my God. And I get angry. Yes, I'm going to get angry. We live and die for this, man. Don't come in here changing around things, man, and turning people away from the real teachings of the Torah. You're either going to say what it says in the book or keep it to yourself. You could do it the way you want to do it and let God be the judge. But if you can't show us in the book, I don't want to hear it. Don't bring it to me, and don't bring it to none of my family in my house or the house of Chief Eleazar, because we ain't going for it. He said, and whosoever that soul that touches any such shall be unclean until the even. And the word for even is ereb. You know what ereb means? Evening, evening, even. You know what else it means? A mixture. It's a mixture of the light with the darkness. Don't tell me you ain't never watched the sunset in your life. You can see where the sun is setting and it's light near the horizon. And the more you go up, it's like a gradient. It's like a grade. And for those women, it's an ombre, and it mixes the two colors together gradually. You might see yellow, orange, red, pink, purple, blue. And then when you get up high enough, you see the black sky with stars in it, and the sun ain't set yet. It's a mixture of the day and the night. That's what Ereb is. That's what it means in Hebrew. Don't tell me no garbage, man. And that's what it means. It means what it says. And if you don't want to accept that, you got a problem. You're a rebel because you are going against an established fact. And you know what? Honestly, you could choose what you want to do. It's your life. But just remember, it's borrowed for a time. I'm going to cut this right here and I'm going to read something. I'm going to read some notes I took about stone truths. And we're going to praise God. And there's praises to God in this also. Blessed be El Shaddai, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, true and living God, who called his servant Moses up to the holy mount of God, even Mount Sinai, and inscribed with his finger his holy and righteous law, the foundation of all truth, in stone, upon the tablets, cut out of the rock by his hand for the sake of preserving the seed of his people. And you notice, if you notice, as in my notes, you're going to hear me make same references that you read in the book. Not nothing new, not nothing out of my own mind. Whatever's here, I can back it up with the book. Upon the tablets, in stone, upon the tablets, cut out of the rock by his hand for the sake of preserving the seed of his people, Israel, throughout all the generations of the earth, thus establishing his covenant by the just ordering of the law, connected with all things in existence to give life to all that keep it. You want me to back that up too? All right. When we didn't keep the law, the land stopped bringing forth fruits and there was drought. The law is connected to all things in existence. Animals start to die. Trees start to die. The rain would not fall from the heavens. Connected to all things in existence to give life to all that keep it, but destruction to those who oppose it. For these truths, engraved in stone, hold the keys to life itself, and thereby is the heart made pure. For truth is the only purgative of corruption. Therefore, like the law of God, were they set in stone by the creator and giver of life, and cannot be altered, nor overruled by any, for they are the foundation of all things, and his truth will prevail over all forever. When we reach a certain level of humility, a certain height of understanding, we learn that our emotions do not have the power to change reality, but our thoughts and actions do, so long as they do not aim to disrupt the divine order of life. Though reality is relative to the viewpoint of the perceiver, perception deceives its own master. That's what we got to remember. Our perception is not the only perception. That's why we got to look to the book to teach us what words mean. Yet there is but one established sovereignty of truth, the inescapable truths set forth by the order of the highest, ordained by the creator of all things in existence from the beginning, which changeth not, but will endure forever. Though a man change, pervert, pollute, or corrupt all things that were made with all his power granted him of God, all are subject to the will and judgment of the Almighty, for all remain under his jurisdiction alone. And at the appointed time, in his time, his judgment will be done. For he made man upright, a little lower than the angels, with the power to make sound decisions, and therefore man shall be held accountable for his words, thoughts, and actions, regardless of opinions, feelings, ignorances, circumstances, desires, burdens, or struggles. For who can say, I knew not, as if he had not the wherewithal to seek it out? As King Solomon, the son of God's beloved King David, wrote in the book of the Wisdom of Solomon, which wicked men attempted to hide from the children of Israel, removing this and other writings of our fathers from the Tanakh, also known as the Old Testament, when the children of Belial among our fathers, yes, because the children of Belial were amongst us. Belial means worthless. And through time, that term, Belial, changed because its original meaning means worthless or without worth. And later on, we see where the sons of Belial became a phrase to describe wickedness and wicked men. And then in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul, which is nothing but a Hebrew whose original name was Shaul, who conformed to the ways of the Greeks and Romans, who is a traitor to God, uses the term Belial as a direct synonym for the adversary. When our fathers, the children of Belial, who fell out to the Romans and sold themselves to do after the man of the heathen, following Hellenism is a modern polytheistic religion that revives and reconstructs the ancient religious myths and values of classical Greece, from the Greco-Roman deities of historical research, traditional rituals, and devotion. That's what Hellenism is. And you want to see what they did throughout the ages? Okay, well, it was deeply embedded in Greek civic life, art, and philosophy. The term can also refer to the historical spread of Greek culture, language, and thought throughout the Mediterranean and Near East as a phenomenon heavily accelerated by the conquest of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BCE, after the Maccabees. About 400 years after the Maccabees. Okay? When our fathers who fell out to Hellenism were commissioned to write idolatrous books of falsehood in defiance of our God, to deceive the generations to follow, causing them to turn to the self-serving worship of the sun god, introduced to the post-Diluvian world, post-Diluvian after the flood, through the ancient teachings of that wicked Nimrod, to replace the books of our fathers that were omitted, taken out, that's the Apocrypha, with blasphemous books of deception, that's the New Testament, that disgustingly mislead the unlearned to believe that God is a man, and that through believing in him, a man, a false representation of God, without any action to prove faithful, that the law would be abolished. This done with the intent that every man might forfeit his own soul in following after the lust of his own heart. King Solomon, so fittingly put in the eloquence of wisdom, wrote in the Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13, surely vain are all men by nature who are ignorant of God, and could not out of the good things that are seen and known that are seen know him that is, neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster, but deemed either fire or wind or the swift air or the circle of the stars or the violent water or the lights of heaven to be the gods which govern the world, with whose beauty, if they being delighted, took them to be gods, let them know how much better the Lord of them is. For the first author of beauty hath created them. But if they were astonished at their power and virtue, let them understand by them how much mightier he is that made them. For by the greatness and beauty of the creatures, proportionably the maker of them is seen. But yet for this they are the less to be blamed, for they peradventure err, seeking God, and desirous to find him. For being conversant in his works, they search him diligently and believe their sight, because the things are beautiful that are seen. Howbeit, neither are they to be pardoned. For if they were able to know so much that they could aim at the world, how did they not sooner find out the Lord thereof? So don't be deceived by the sight of your eyes. Don't go following everything you see and believe. The Torah gives wisdom. The Torah is going to give you enlightening of the eyes. And by these words, he warns all to follow that we must seek the Lord God in truth and simplicity of heart, casting all of our own vain views along with the negationistic teachings of our youth behind us in the relentless pursuit of righteousness, selfless intention, humility, mercy, understanding, which is to depart from evil, and above all, wisdom, the beginning of which is the fear of the Lord. And that in regard to the truth, that's what we need to consider, that we're seeking the truth. Because if you're not, if you'll know if you're seeking the truth or not, because when you find it in the book and you don't follow it, you're not seeking the truth. If you come up with a justification and an excuse why you ain't gonna do what the book say because of what you heard or read somewhere else, you ain't seeking the truth. You seeking after your own heart. You seeking what appeases you. You seeking what you agree with to follow. And then you call that God. But you ain't seeking the truth. You ain't seeking the true and living God. You ain't seeking the one that requires you to make sacrifices and get rid of your negationistic teachings. Let's find out what that word means. A negationist is a person who denies, minimizes, or refuses to accept documented reality of widely accepted historical events or established facts. Negationists rarely rely on legitimate evidence-based research. Instead, they typically use manipulative tactics like presenting forged documents as genuine, inventing implausible reasons to distrust authentic evidence, manipulating or selectively using statistics, deliberately misquoting or mistranslating texts. That's why I said we got to stop taking on the ways of our oppressors. It's bad enough they taught us in school using negationistic techniques to change history, to change history, to make America look like the good guys, to make the white man look like he invented everything. Not any white man, the European white man that colonized, settled in America. And then we go and do that to the laws of our God and to our own people and use negationistic tactics to teach lies. Yo, man, don't bring that over here, man. Stick to what the book say. And if you ain't gonna stick to it, keep it to yourself. You choose to do what you want to do in your own house, but don't come spreading that propaganda over here. And also, in the book of Ecclesiastes, summarizing in but a few words, he stated, "Lo, this only have I found, that God has made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions. And because we have gone far off in the ways of corruption, because we pursued our own vain desires and sought our own selfish pleasures continuously, and were not hearkened to the voice of our Maker, therefore has he given us up to the lust of our own hearts. Every mind is a world of its own. Yet he took not away from us our right to self-governance, nor the power of Elohim, having dominion over the earth and all that therein is. Each of us equipped with the ability to manifest our own reality by the power to attract whatsoever we speak, believe, and feel with conviction. Because we are connected to everything in the conscious, subconscious, and metaphysical realms, we as gods, as Elohim, bring forth into our existence whatsoever we conceive in our hearts and call to ourselves with the words of our mouths, once convinced and spoken through repetition, the very words themselves inciting action until it comes to life. That's why wicked men could build bridges across oceans, across rivers. That's why men could build airplanes that fly across the world. That's why men could build skyscrapers into the clouds and they don't fall. For this is the power of Elohim granted us of our Creator. Wicked men, by the way. And he still never took that away from us. In whose image he fashioned us, founded in the spirit. He said, this is the power of Elohim granted us of our Creator, in whose image he fashioned us, founded in the spirit, fueled by whose breath we live. And yea, if a man would choose of his own free will to do his will, might he be found righteous? Is this not the purpose of our being? Is this not the true essence of a God? Is it not to be like unto the God by whom we were made upright, like unto himself? Is not this the principal thing that determines one worthy of life? And yet, despite our evil inclinations to defy our true Father and King, he took not away the very thing that he granted us, the freedom to choose whatsoever we desire, even if we might be destroyed thereby. Therefore he, knowing our nature, multiplied his mercies and likened man to the husbandman's seed. Husbandman is a farmer, Old English. To the intent that there might be just enough sown in the earth among that innumerable multitude to bring forth the few righteous that he hoped for when he set all things in order by number and measure from the beginning. And though the entire vineyard be grown wild into a degenerative vine, bringing forth strange fruit, yet he might be comforted in his one precious cluster of grapes, who have chosen to walk in the light of his truth, for whose sakes he made the world first in thought. Though a man be ever so stubborn and rebellious as the children of Israel, who were made privy to the secrets of wisdom, having no excuse or justification for our rebellion, not as the nations who knew not God and were destroyed in their sins, for the world is the way it is because of the sins of Israel. It is because of our sins that the curses consume the earth. Yet he has preserved his word, leaving a narrow entrance to the world to come, paving the path of righteousness open only unto them who are resolute in their hearts to seek out the truth, in a bold show of their appreciation unto him that prepared life for them, making a covenant by sacrifice in doing the things that please him. These exercising mastery over the corruption sown in our hearts from the beginning by coercing the spirit to leverage the free will granted us by God to do his will. For we were appointed by God to be a light to the world, a nation of priests. But we, like men, forgot our composition, the righteous root of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and forsook our God. We were once the apple of his eye for glory, but like a stubborn ox or a wild stallion that refuses to be broken, we remain proud in our wickedness. Even in chastisement, we refuse to receive correction as a spoiled child, because we mistook his deliberation and judgment for excuse. We misinterpreted his mercy for favor. We misunderstood his patience and took it for privilege. We abused his love and thought to take advantage of our God. And now, as we sit in shame, scattered among the nations, think to change the order of life established by our God from the beginning? And even if we have it so, according to our own heart's desire, turning things upside down, bringing destruction upon the whole earth, leaning upon our wickedness as a blind man leaning upon a broken staff, yet there remain some things we cannot change, despite the unyielding conviction to will it so, like the fact that the sky is blue and water is wet, our genetic makeup, or that of the bloodline of our kindred, or the individuality of all things living that was established at creation by their kinds, each according to his will, or that we are all connected to everything in God's creation, both moving and inanimate, that all things resonate at their own unique frequencies of life based on the elements by which they were made, the very same elements wherewith God created every living thing. By this we are one, and therefore as one we fall, unless we repent and return wholeheartedly in truth. Then we might be accepted individually according to our sincerity, works, and ways. No hate, no grudge, no resentment, no distance, nor time could ever change the fact that your brother is indeed your brother as you are his, whether the son of your father or the son of your mother, the son of our father Abraham, the son of our father Noah, or the son of our first father Adam. No matter what we say, do, or believe, our minds could never change the order of the highest, just as one that may alter the outer shell cannot alter the X or Y chromosome that dictate the gender of the human creature. So the creature cannot alter the decree of the creator. And with that, I hope that everybody is inspired by the words of Moses, by the words of God spoken through his prophet Moses. I hope that we are all inspired by the words of the wisdom of Solomon. I hope that we will all humble ourselves, turn from our evil ways, and walk upright before the Most High, our King. I bid you have the ancient tongue of our fathers. Shabbat Shalom Lakem.
Shabbat Shalom Lakem.
We'll continue in this, some of this that I didn't get to bring today, later next week. Anybody else have any questions? Anybody have any questions before I shut this down? I can't see that. It's so small. I don't know what you're showing me. What am I looking at? There's a lot here.
Says, can you
explain what a petuka in the Hebrew scripture means between verses? Oh, no, I cannot, Zacharias, but I will tell you that when these books were copied and written, although the words remained the same according to the Hebrew, and we know that because when the Dead Sea Scrolls were found 2,000 years ago, they say the same thing in the Hebrew as they said today, because when they were written 2,000 years ago, when they were found in 1948 or 46, wherever they were found, and they started to do excavations, they found that the Hebrew is exactly the same as the Hebrew that we have today that's been circulating for generations ever since 2,000 years ago. It's still the same. That's how we know the word hasn't been altered, and that's because of the power of our God that chose the right men to copy it over and over. But some of those things, like those little symbols in between verses, and even breaking down the Torah in verses and into chapters, was done by some of was our fathers, and some were just rabbis, Jewish scholars of the time that were making their translations. And then those certain things were carried on by the generations of the Jewish rabbis and scribes and scholars that continued to write according to that, copies according to that format. So Moses wrote it as a scroll. The first 5 books were broken down into books, and there were scrolls, and it wasn't broken down by chapter. So some of that broken down by chapter later on through translations. And then some of it was broken down, by Hebrew scholars into chapters and translation and into verses. So I don't know what a petuka is and why that's in between verses, but I do know that that has nothing to do whether or not we're going to learn the law and to do it exactly the way it's written. And that shouldn't stop us from studying or being so inquisitive about those things, instead of how we're going to keep these words exactly the way they are written to the letter. And I know that you have questions because you're a man that studies. So I understand that sometimes you just want to get the answer for things because other people have their own explanations about what it is and what it means, or you might have read it somewhere, or another teacher might have said something about it. But I'm here to tell you that's not what God commanded us. He didn't mention the word of petuka in the Torah concerning how to keep these laws, or what it is in between verses. I think what's in the verses is more important than what's in between the verses. Unless we're talking about, the wisdom that's found in the principles that are in between the lines that you get as in time from reading and performing the Torah, right? So I hope I answered your question, Zacharias. And I think we need to focus on what is important in learning the Hebrew, or even if you're still in English, reading it in English, asking someone if it says the same thing in Hebrew. I wouldn't leave that type of studying to Google, or ChatGPT, because ChatGPT is just a culmination of knowledge that is already shared on the internet or that is in archives. ChatGPT was programmed by men, and the men that programmed it, don't serve God, right? So we are left to their understanding and not necessarily wisdom, right? So when we're talking about finding out what it says in the Hebrew, and if you only speak English and you haven't studied Hebrew, or you're not learning it yet, go to someone that knows Hebrew or that studies. And I would go to someone that's not going to give you their opinion. I would go to one of my brothers, Chief Shama. I know, who spends a lot of time in the book in Hebrew. I would come to me. I would ask Chief Kazak, who is our Hebrew teacher, right? So who's going to give you a direct explanation or definition according to what it says without their opinion attached to it, right? So, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can't know the Torah, yeah, or the Hebrew scroll, but I know what you mean, without knowing Hebrew, and that's true. But King James is the standard King James version is the closest translation that I've found in my studies. And my teacher says the same thing. And all of my teachers from the House of Chief Eleazar agree that, who have done our research, the Jerusalem, the other closest translation of English would be the Linear, which is just the first 5 books translated by Hebrew scholars, probably Jewish. Other than that, King James is the closest, and the standard King James, not the new King James. So let's stick to it according to, right, 1611, Chief Mikhail. I just said standard because, sometimes the 1611 versions are written with V's instead of U's, and some of the spelling is different, and people might find it hard to understand. So it's still the same standard that is written in the way we spell English today. The words are still the same as the 1611 that might spell, put a V instead of a U, or in that old English way of writing. But the words are still the same, just written, the way we spell words today. But that's correct. 1611 is the best, closest to the Hebrew. So I hope I answered all of those questions. And again, we're still learning as well, right? Was there Bet Zadok? I wouldn't say KJV is geared towards a Christian point of view, other than the word Messiah, that we find in Isaiah. And other than that, is pretty close. None of the translation has been changed to add a Christian's perspective. It's just like a word or two, like the word Messiah, because that doesn't exist in Hebrew. The word is Moshiach, and it just means anointed, right? The anointed one. And if you read another part of the book, God calls King David Ha-Moshiach, right? Which means the anointed one. He gave him that title. But yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't discourage people saying that it's from a Christian's point of view. I think once we learn the Torah, then you have that grounded foundation in Torah, and you know what the Torah says. Even if you're just reading the King James and you stick to it exactly to the letter, you won't be confused by other parts of the book, right? So, but I do encourage everybody to start studying and learn the language, because you're not going to get a better understanding, because the words are more deep in Hebrew. It gives us a full understanding to learn the heart of God, the mind of God. And even if you get to that point where you learn the language and you're reading it for years, to go deeper and find out what the letters themselves mean that make up the roots to these words, we find out how deep it is, man. And there's far more depths to understanding, why certain things, why certain orders were set in place, how certain things are connected, in the world, and how we are all connected to everything. This is, when you hear me speaking like that, it comes from deeper studies of the language. But okay. I mean, if you want to prove it, that's fine. We're all open to learning and hearing your reference points. But personally, I'm reading the Torah. I started reading the Torah from Genesis to Deuteronomy in English before I learned Hebrew, and I didn't find no Christian views in the first 5 books at all. And once you get that down pat and you're performing it, God's not going to leave you confounded. You won't be confused by other parts of the book, regardless of the translation. And another thing I want to point out is God chose King James. All things are done at the hand of God. Same way he chose Nebuchadnezzar to destroy Jerusalem. And when he obeyed, God called him his servant. God chose King James to translate the book in English. And that's why it's spread throughout all the world. And that's why it's not a coincidence that God knew that these people would be in charge and rule the world and take over every region of the world, and that English would be the primary language. It wasn't a coincidence that he knew that would happen. When King James was commissioned to translate it into English, the whole world was not speaking English. And today in every country, there's an English class. So that's not a coincidence either. So let's take all these things in consideration. When you're seeking God in truth, God's not going to lead you astray. I don't care what language you speak. I don't care what language you read. So if there's something in the English, translation that was misleading, God's not going to let you be misled once you serving him in truth. And with that, I'm going to end it here. I hope that everybody's inspired by the words of the Most High. I hope that we'll all serve him in truth and simplicity of heart, and humble ourselves, turn from our evil ways, and walk upright before him. I bid you have the ancient tongue of our fathers. Shabbat shalom lekam.
Shabbat shalom lekam.